Okay. Okay, folks, let's get stuck into the fundamental outlook. So, number one, we've had the CPI print out of the US. It's a weak print, and that led to a potential upside in the E-mini. And we took a quick scalp on that out of the print, just moving up sort of 5-6 points in the E-mini. Sentiment's now very positive, so we'll be looking at getting into that as we move into the session. Donald Trump has been up and about, and he's saying our deal with China is done, subject to final approval with President Xi and me. We're getting a total of 55% tariffs. China's getting 10%. Relation is excellent. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So it's not quite understood what that means, because is that, 55% tariff still seems very high. There's been some clarification from the White House saying that 30% is formed from the 10% baseline and 20% fentanyl measures, and then measures from before the current term account for the remaining 25%, leading to an effective rate of 55%. So we still need to work out exactly what's going on with President Xi and President Trump. So just watch out, that could go either way in terms of sentiment. And the initial upside is, that sounds like a breaking headline there that's just coming out. Just saw a bit of price movement there in the E-mini. I wonder what's going on. Okay, so far so good. We'll keep seeing how that goes as we move forward. So sentiment quite positive. The 10-year bond auction is going to get attention today. If that's very weak, look at the bid to cover ratio. If that comes in underneath 2, so if that's like 1 point something.
More Trump comments circulating in pre-markets. Trump says he and China's Xi will work closely on trade.
Okay. If that bid to cover ratio comes in under 2, that's negative. So you can see that could result in the E-mini selling off. And then we want to look at how much foreign investors. Now, the 3-year bond auction yesterday was pretty good. It was slightly weak, but it wasn't terribly weak. The high yield was quite high, higher than the previous one, but sort of foreign investment into US Treasuries was relatively strong. There certainly wasn't like a big dip. In fact, if anything, there was an uptick in foreign purchase of 3-year bonds. That's really important for the sell US thing. So just keep it on your radar. If it comes in very poor, and you see people talking about a poor bond auction, that can hit risk sentiment. So that's another risk that we've got out. And we are in the Fed's blackout period, I think, right now. So there shouldn't be any Fed speakers, but there is Trump on, not Trump, Vice President Vance saying the Fed's refusal to cut rates is monetary malpractice. I remember the Fed are concerned about cutting rates because they think that tariff policy is going to be inflationary. So they're trying to do their job and obviously getting flack for it. So that's a tension between the Fed and the US administration. Apart from that, I just broadly say sentiment is positive. US equities up, Euro Stoxx DAX up, volatility down, markets liking it. Bonds finding buyers in the current environment, that's positive. And gold up, silver in a bit of a pullback. We'll look at that. I want to show you that Bollinger Band move again in silver. Just want to look at dollar, slightly weaker, but finding a little bit of bids as markets sort of digesting what's happened with the Fed. Dollar yen downside does make sense, but there was some inflation data out for Japan last night, which was a little bit weaker than markets are expecting. So dollar yen downside still makes sense, as does euro dollar upside still makes sense. So I want to show you that Bollinger Band technique. Bollinger Bands, I was just showing this with the FX guys. For those wanting to get into this silver long, when you have a breakout outside the Bollinger Band and you see it's breaking out on volume, right? So you can see on balance volume making fresh highs, price making fresh highs. So in other words, this is a very strongly supported move higher. That 20 simple moving average becomes a great entry point. So any pullbacks into that area, which is also this horizontal level, is a great area to go long. Doesn't look like it wants to pull back. It just looks like it wants to keep going higher. And the way to trade it is the entry on the breakout of the Bollinger Band and then close it after about sort of 20 days and just see how far it can go and then trail the stop behind the simple moving average. So entry there, stop will be underneath the 32.32. So that will be the move. So from there to there, I've been long for some time in silver and maintaining that bullish bias and looking for this to keep going. Any pullbacks I would see as dip buying opportunities. And notice as well, even though we've seen some dollar weakness.
Banks Coast Heath expects small inflation rebound to be temporary and for inflation to resume its downward trend in the coming months. Heath says it may be time to pause benchmark rate cuts and see if inflation is really going down. Commentary coming via the El Economista newspaper.
Looking at silver on the weekly chart, looking for price action signals as well, but a daily chart, that weekly signal was quite strong there. And this is a good way of trading Bollinger Bands on breakouts in commodity markets. Just something I've been looking at recently this week and I wanted to share with you. Okay, so what does that leave us? Let's now look at the E-mini. Value area high here is the 60.30 to 60.32. That's key support. Now let's look where the other key value areas are as we move up. So we've got a very key area here. Gets a bit messy here just because of the nature of it, but we're moving into fresh areas here. All right, so that's a high, value area low. That can go, and that's where price is finding a tad near-term resistance just in that value area on the weekly chart, and that's actually going all the way up into there as well. So it's got a strong band to that value area. Get above that area, then your next kind of value area is going to be that 60-90 region here. They're the two next levels that I can see in terms of targets. And if we break out of here on the weekly chart, the delta is positive. So buyers have come in and you can see that we've trapped sellers all across here. So pull back to this region here is great for dip buying. On the 15-minute chart, we can see that we've pushed out that value area from high from yesterday. We're now looking like we're opening above value, right? Buyers pulling back, and you can see on the 5-minute, right, you got some sellers there, got that standard deviation that's holding for now. So as we're looking at it, right, where's an obvious place to enter? Anywhere around here is great. Anywhere around that VWAP is great for entries. And delta is positive on the day, and we'd expect that positivity to come into the session. The risk obviously is the US-China trade headlines, but otherwise looking for, buyers getting trapped in line with this bias to the upside, that's absolutely fine, right? And we'd expect to find more upside as we move into the session. So if we see buyers getting trapped up here, so if we see sellers getting trapped on the 5-minute, that would be suitable for going long. So we'll keep an eye on that. If we drop any further down here, looking for trapped buyers or sellers on the 15 as an opportunity to go long. So relatively straightforward, sentiment is positive. We're just looking to get into this in a logical way as we move forward. Obvious target is up at that daily value area here. That will be the first target for buyers if we keep moving above this level. Let's see here, we've got sellers there, that was sellers there, that was a bottom. We can see here. Just while we're waiting, Najim, I was looking at a double top and double bottoms in my CMT textbook this week, and I came across something that I wanted to chat through with you if you're around. Just let me know if you're here. Yeah. Well, what it was, and it was very interesting, and I have to confess, it's something I hadn't seen when I first looked at double tops and double bottoms. Let me just try and show you one. And what I'd missed was the way that they were categorized. Right, I'll just take this Bollinger Band off, right? So I want to take let me try and find a better double bottom. Just gonna have a little look around. All right, so textbook double bottom, right? So you got peak number 1 at the bottom, peak number 2, and there's your trough, right? How you look at it. That's your trough point. No, I don't want that. I just want this. Here's your trough point, and there's your bottom number 1, bottom number 2. Now, it classifies as a bottom because price is coming back down through it's a reversal pattern, right? So it comes down through that trough area. Great, that makes sense. Now, for it to be a legitimate double bottom, the two peaks have to be within 5% price of each other. So you can see that they're about 1% price difference. They don't have to be even, but just within 5%. So they're within 5%. So that makes it valid, right? Then this was the bit that I'd missed, was that then, and it's based on this research by this chap called Bukowski, what he's saying, for it to be really a valid double bottom, that stop, that price to trough area, that should be around 10% from the peak to the trough. And you see that's 15%, so that would be like fine. Then that is the validation of the pattern. So the two peaks within 5%, but this bit here, this is what I hadn't clocked, which I should have done, but I didn't, is that needs to be about 10%. When that's 10%, then obviously, right, you get the breakout here, and you get the breakout in volume. And they had the target not as the height of the pattern, but as like 70%. So I just wanted to point out to you that just means that probably when people are talking about double tops and double bottoms, they're probably not talking about it in the way that it's meant in the technical analysis way. And it's to do with this 10% factor. And obviously in some stocks, you're not going to get that 10% factor. I wanted to point that out to you, Nadja, because I know you've been mentioning double tops and bottoms, and I thought I hadn't been correctly identifying it, and I wanted to set myself straight on that. Isn't it? It is really interesting. And also the other thing that was interesting is normally the patterns are the height of the patterns, but what they were saying is that here's a good example. So in this, right, peak 1, peak 2. What's the difference in the two peaks? 1.74% roughly. Okay, so that's fine. That hits the category. Where's the trough point? There's the trough, right? And what's the percentage point? Is it 10%? Yeah, okay, so that's about 11, 12%. So then that will be valid, okay? The other thing is they said 2 to 6 weeks before, if it goes longer than kind of 6 weeks, it wasn't really valid. This is a very classical double top, isn't it? But then they had the target as 73%, right? So it's around that. So that was the other thing that surprised me, is that they had the target at 73%, not the height of the pattern. That would take it like to there. Weird. Two things that I'd missed despite having studied the topic 3 times, right, for each CMT. Right. Nice pattern though. Oh, and the reason I got Rolls-Royce up is because UK government is thinking of investing in these module mobile nuclear reactors. And so Rolls-Royce was enjoying some upside on that in early trade, but very limited upside, isn't it? But just in case that does break out, UK spending review going on, and Rolls-Royce a potential beneficiary. So sellers coming in at the open, 1 minute. Yeah, definitely sellers taking us off at the open, makes sense. Expecting dip buyers though, just a question of where they come in. Let's have a look. Is this okay? Some trap sellers here and here. 60.46 looks nice for dip buying, and that's that level there. Okay, so I'm happy to have a buy order in there, the 60.46. You've got sellers trap there, and if I move down to there, I'm happy to look for a buy if we drop down, and that's also the daily VWAP. So let's see if I get, okay, I'm in there, hitting where those sellers are trapped. That kind of makes sense to have a long position in there. Now, let's see how it reacts there. We're trying to push in, but we're pushing into this area. This is where sellers are trapped. So this is an obvious turnaround point. We've also got the value area down here. So happy just to see how price reacts at this level. Got sellers trapped there, buyers can come in from this level. You've got the daily VWAP. You've also got buyers here, right? So these buyers can be defended, and you've got those sellers there on the 15. So where am I definitely wrong? I'm definitely wrong the other side of this structure. So that's what I'm doing. Entering an initial position down here, and see if we can start building in up towards that value area high. That's kind of the sentiment's okay. It's pretty strong. CPI was weak. US White House China optimism. Let's see what we can get out of this. Okay, a little bit of relief from the initial wave of selling. Some buyers coming in. That's the initial reaction. 1 minute. We're in a developing value area low down here, very important area, but no one's trapped yet. Okay, sellers still have the front foot, and you can see that delta is moving negative from the open. So sellers are still here and they're still dominating proceedings. Here's the tick chart. You remember the 15? Those sellers got trapped. We've moved back to the nose of those sellers. Stops the other side of that structure. Let's see if we can start to build higher from here. Let's see how far we go. We had buyers trapped here. So delta negative from the start of the US Open. Some of the initial selling has just slowed, but we still have buyers supporting and trying to lean off this level. So let's see how strong a level this actually is, or whether we're going to drop down to the next support level, which is just here. Okay, on the 1 hour chart, you can see that buyers move down. We're testing these trapped sellers here. We're finding some initial buyers, which is what you'd expect. Okay, delta is now negative, so it's less positive now than when we were here earlier. Trying to force the issue maybe down to this next value area, the 60.37, and sellers trying to trap these buyers. This is an important area. Can those buyers defend this region, or will sellers trap those buyers? Buyers still holding for now. So sellers tried to break through, were unable to. Delta still moving lower, so buyers really need to push above this value area high here. Let's see. But sellers trapped there, so this is holding. Here's a little attempt at trying to push it higher. So buyers now having another go. Can they trap some of those sellers there? Let's see. In an attempt for buyers to trap those sellers. And that will be the first time, if those buyers are able to trap sellers, it'll be they haven't. All right. So buyers haven't been able to trap sellers either. Look like they're having another go. They've taken the point of control, but sellers have still got the dominant force and sellers are still here.
Just more from Brazil commentary from Prime Minister Haddad. Says they do still
Positive delta coming in.
Measures to make the current cycle sustainable.
Buyers trying it. Now buyers have managed to trap sellers.
They do need to continue to advance.
So more buyers coming in immediately because buyers have trapped sellers against the point of control here. So that does give a little bit of upside for buyers. There's an upside bias there. And they're coming in. They're able to take it as far as the daily VWAP. Okay, very important point now. Where do we go from here? Can we get more sellers trapped? That's what needs to happen. Delta has now turned positive on the session. Important. So buyers have taken the front foot. They've trapped some sellers. The VWAP is an obvious place where things can just stop. So you just got to be conscious of that. A very important area here. Can buyers move up and trap these sellers up here? That would be great. We've got to clear that VWAP out. That has to happen. Right, so I'm just going to move my stop to break even now because I don't want to see price coming back down and testing that now. I want this to recover from here. Yeah, if it comes back and stops me out, fine, I can reconsider. All right, do we get some more sellers? If we get these sellers trapped, that would be great. Okay, so rejection that VWAP. That's the risk here with that VWAP holds price. Those buyers were able to trap those sellers. I'm knocked out at break even. Now let's just see, is there another way into this? Well, that's interesting, isn't it? The VWAP is holding on the 5, but on the 1, it's capping prices. Just missed. Let's see. I've entered in the long now, and that's quite a happy place to enter because you're just here at the bottom of this short-term range. So you can see here, got those sellers trapped there. So this is another go. If I go back down to that 60.30, okay, just going to accept that that's not going to be the turnaround place for today. And look again. So it's based on this 15-minute structure. So sellers, they're trying to break out of that area as well. So that's a breakout trade at a 60.40, but it's into the value area. So that would have been a legitimate breakout trade, just straight into it. Nothing wrong with that at all. If you took that as a breakout from here, Don't know if you took that, Mark Anthony. I know you're into your 15-minute opening range breakout, and that would have been legitimate, but that's an obvious target here. See, with those sellers getting trapped there, this could potentially be the turnaround point, you see. Okay, so I'm up a decent amount on this. So I'm just going to pull that entry to break even. If it comes back under that standard deviation, then I'm in the wrong place. So ideally what I want to do is be able to build into it. Sentiment is positive. Remember that slight caveat, what's going on exactly with that US-China headline? It's not massively clear, so we shall see. So we found those buyers, and we found the buyers exactly where we'd expected to at that area. Now the problem here is delta is remaining negative, but look at this divergence. Price makes lower lows, but the cumulative delta makes higher lows. That tells us straight away there is a divergence here. So those sellers here are about to get trapped. They risk getting trapped, those breakout sellers. And if they do, then you're likely to see the delta turn positive here at this point as well. So let's see how it develops from here. So buyers trying to trap those sellers, but there's big resistance ahead. There's the point of control ahead, and there's the VWAP, but notice the delta now turning positive. So that's very positive. And you see that divergence. That divergence is clarifying now, that look. So buyers are back in control here. Right, they're back in control at this point. You've got a nice hammer reversal there on the 5-minute chart, rejecting this support level. And if we see these buyers trap those sellers there, then that could be a run up to the point of control. So let's...
Small commentary from Brazil Saddad says the taxation on the richest is for those who do not pay even 10% effective tax rates per year.
So buyers coming in trying to trap those sellers. All right, so a bit of a turnaround now. Now this is crucial. So I've got a position in here, and what I've got to ask myself is, do I take profit at that VWAP, or do I let it run? Now I'm going to let it run, because if you look at the delta, it's rising and pushing up. It's now turned positive. Also the fact that we had sellers here, they've moved lower. Any breakout sellers are now underwater. So with the delta building and now turning positive, I think the prospect of breaking out of here is much higher. This may also offer an opportunity to add to longs. And we've also got a hammer reversal bar there. So let's see what we can get out of this. So we're having another shot at this higher. Buyers coming in, trapping those sellers. So now we've got, if we can close above those sellers, and I think I'll add to my longs actually, because then that's those initial sellers getting trapped, isn't it? Let's see if they get trapped here.
A bit more from Brazil Saddad says so far he cannot see a better income tax reform proposal than the current one.
Okay, I've added another long with those sellers getting trapped by these buyers here, and the delta still pushing up. So let's see how that, and the on-balance volume's pushing up, delta's pushing up. So let's see if we can get a little bit more out of this. Delta is now positive. So moving the whole position now to break even. Now, see, I haven't managed to take out, those sellers are taken out.
And commentary from US President Trump on CPI. Says CPI just out as the growth numbers. Fed should lower 1 full point, but pay much less interest on debts coming due. Says it's so important. Latest post there from US President Trump after the CPI data, again reiterating his call that the Fed should lower by 1 full point, and does call CPI numbers as great numbers.
Trump wanting the Fed to make 4 interest rate cuts. Right? Markets just loving that. Oh boy, so funny. So there we go. That's a bit of uptick on that. The buyers trapping sellers on the tick chart. Let's just see if we can get a bit more out of this. It feels like we want to make a run up to that standard deviation. This is important. Can we break above those highs there? That would be important. Right, I'm going to close that now because I haven't been able to take out those sellers there. So I could see a little bit of a pullback. So just closing those 2 positions and now waiting for an opportunity to get in, but let's see. So basically taking the long from that value area low where those sellers were trapped. That was the entry really. And then 5-minute, yes, we got sellers trapped down there. So, you know, if we move back down to there, that would be a good dip buying opportunity. quick debrief for the day. We're looking to go long. Weak CPI takes pressure off the Fed, and news of a US-China trade deal being done. Exactly what was done wasn't clear, but market sentiment was positive. So we're looking for buying. Tried an early buy here, just as we sort of moved into this sort of support level around the VWAP, and then took another buy as we took it off the standard deviation where those sellers were trapped. So that was the best trade of the day. That was, how many points was that? About 15-ish points around that mark.
And as this interview does progress, in terms of what's been said so far, Lutnick, when asked about what transfer marks mean when the trade deal is done, Lutnick pointed out when China rolled the rare earth magnets, they did put on countermeasures.
Then we saw that very nice divergence, which just gave us confidence for holding the longs. You see price was moving lower, but the delta was moving higher. Higher was lower lows.
And Lutnick points out that China is going to approve all applications for magnets for US companies, as Trump and Xi has to approve the final wording.
Then I went for a breakout on the this is a flag, took it, and then as I moved lower underneath this,
both sides are positive.
Looking back, probably needn't be so I should have held through that, but then re-entered once those buyers trapped those sellers here, re-entered, and then took the long, and then took another long later from here up to the just a standard deviation as it was. All right, folks, take care, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.